And that is Eyewitness News at 5 o'clock. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you in just half an hour at 6 o'clock.
Now for David, Garth, Kurt, the entire Eyewitness News team, I'm Leslie Sykes. Have a good night.
Good night.
Diamonds. The Jewelry Exchange is a direct diamond importer. The Jewelry Exchange has thousands of diamonds, most with GIA or EGL certs, laser inscribed and guaranteed the lowest price. 1 carat solitaires are $5.99, 1 carat studs $3.99. The Jewelry Exchange has thousands of rings, pendants, earrings, and bracelets, and specializes in platinum and invisible settings. Only the Jewelry Exchange gives you a low price and double value guarantee. Buy factory direct. The Jewelry Exchange in Tustin.
Backed up in all 4 lanes in both directions, all the way up to the 114-mile marker. This one's turning into a real mess, folks. If you can avoid the freeway at all, I suggest you do. Moving on to the 302 interchange, not much new there.
Maybe! Maybe! Maybe!
I kind of dabble in electronics on the weekend. But like most people, I have what you'd call a termite problem. So I invented this little beauty. It will identify, pinpoint, and destroy all termite species.
Here's a better idea. More homeowners trust the Terminix Unlimited Lifetime Protection Plan featuring Centricon. 1-800-TERMINX. No bugs, no hassles.
We're surprising angels. Mondays open.
On World News Tonight this Saturday, dozens of people are wounded in downtown Tel Aviv. Another suicide bombing, this time at a packed cafe. Israeli troops close in on Yasser Arafat at his West Bank headquarters. Israeli soldiers are just a few feet away.
I am appealing to the whole international world to stop this aggression against our people.
The end of a long and extraordinary life. Britain's Queen Mother is dead. And conquering Everest, the Americans taking on the legendary peak.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight, Saturday.
Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Vargas. Hard as it is to imagine, the situation in the Middle East is even more tense tonight than it was yesterday. Today, Israeli troops closed in on Yasser Arafat's compound in the West Bank. Palestinian officials said Israeli troops were threatening to storm Mr. Arafat's office. There was also another Palestinian suicide attack today, the third this week. ABC's Dean Reynolds reports tonight from Jerusalem. Good evening, Dean.
Good evening, Elizabeth. Well, the cycle of violence here took a number of dangerous turns in just this one day. The Palestinian response to the siege of Ramallah came right in the middle of Tel Aviv. Ambulances lined a busy street near the burning cafe, transporting some of the more than 24 wounded. A militia linked to Yasser Arafat's political wing claimed responsibility and said the attacker came from the city of Nablus on the West Bank. The incident in Tel Aviv came hours after Israeli tanks pulled to within a few feet of Arafat in Ramallah, cornering him and a small group of loyalists in the ruins of his headquarters.
They are declaring that they will continue their military escalation, and they had more and more plans against our people.
In a candlelight interview recorded before the latest bombing, Arafat praised his people and said their resistance would not stop until the Palestinian flag is raised over Jerusalem. Prolonged street battles have been erupting in Ramallah, north of Jerusalem, leaving 11 Palestinians and 2 Israeli soldiers dead in the last 24 hours. In the city center today, a building was set ablaze by Israeli rocket fire after troops were targeted by snipers inside. Hundreds of militants, taking care to show they posed no further threat, were rounded up later and arrested. And the army displayed a large cache of weapons and ammunition it said was seized from the Palestinian compound. Those who've seen him today say the siege is weighing heavily on Arafat.
I am appealing to the whole international world to stop this aggression against our people.
The Israelis insist they will not harm Arafat, but are less clear on other options.
Do you intend to deport him?
All Israel has said is at this point, we will isolate him, and that is precisely what we're doing.
Whatever their plans, the Israelis are dealing with a situation that is growing more combustible by the day. Violence broke out in a number of areas outside Ramallah today. There were clashes in Hebron on the West Bank. An Israeli border policeman and 2 Palestinians died in a confrontation in central Israel. In Bethlehem, a march by peace activists demanding an Israeli withdrawal turned ugly. And in northern Israel, the army responded with an artillery barrage to answer a cross-border missile attack by the Lebanese militia Hezbollah. Tonight, the siege in Ramallah continues, and there is no clear sign from Israel that intends to end it anytime soon. Elizabeth?
All right, Dean Reynolds reporting tonight from Jerusalem. Thanks for that report. ABC's Dan Harris is just outside Yasser Arafat's compound in Ramallah, where he's been watching developments all day. He joins us now by telephone. Dan, the Palestinians claim the Israelis have threatened to storm the compound. The Israelis have denied it. Have you sorted anything out?
There were reports from the Palestinians inside the compound, as you mentioned, that the army was threatening via loudspeaker right outside the offices where Arafat is holed up to storm the place if everybody didn't come out. The army calls that a fabrication, and as far as we know, there has not been any incursion into those offices. There were reporters that were right outside of that area who say they saw and heard nothing.
All right. Israeli troops have, in fact, however, cut off electricity and water to Arafat's headquarters. We saw a videotape of Arafat speaking earlier today with candlelight and flashlight. Who was in the headquarters right now with Arafat?
He's in there, we're told, with upwards of 100 people, including his top aides and some armed gunmen. Also, Israeli radio is quoting some government sources as saying that the Israelis believe he might be in there with some suspected terrorists who are holed up with him as a means of taking refuge.
Ramallah is normally a bustling city for the PLO, now under a 24-hour curfew. Is there anyone in the streets?
There's nobody in the streets. It's been very quiet. I should say, though, in the last half hour, we're hearing a lot of gunfire near where we are. You also occasionally hear tanks rumbling through the streets. But as you mentioned, this is a normally vibrant, bustling place. The Israelis have imposed a 24-hour rolling curfew, so you don't see anybody in the streets, which is very unusual for Ramallah.
All right, Dan Harris outside Arafat's headquarters in Ramallah. Thanks for that live report via telephone. At his ranch in Crawford, Texas, President Bush today spoke for the first time about this latest round of violence in the Mideast. ABC's Tamala Edwards is in Crawford tonight. Tamala, the president had some harsh words for PLO Chairman Arafat.
Surprisingly so, Elizabeth. The president spent a great deal of the morning on the phone with world leaders, including Arab leaders like Egypt's Hosni Mubarak and Crown Prince Abdullah of Saudi Arabia. Yet when he came out to speak to reporters this afternoon, he showed very little sympathy for corner Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat.
I think that Chairman Arafat can do a lot more. Truly believe that. I believe he needs to stand up and condemn in Arabic these attacks.
As well, the president was very supportive of Israel, saying that it had a right to defend itself. At the same time, he called on Israel to leave what he called an avenue for peace and said he'd been promised that Arafat would not be harmed.
Tamala, the president also warned the countries of Iran and Syria today to get out of the terrorism business, implying somehow that they were involved in these latest attacks.
He was pressed on that and said that he had no evidence that Syria and Iran were connected to these attacks. Yet at the same time, Elizabeth, there's a very important subtext here. You notice when he talked about Arafat, he called on him to speak in Arabic, a reference to the fact that sometimes Arafat says one thing in English and says something far less conciliatory, if not inflammatory, in Arabic. As well, what he was saying to Arab leaders is it's fine for you to support the Saudi peace plan. I need to see that in your own countries, among your own borders, your own people, you're really taking efforts for peace. So in this very tenuous of diplomatic times, some might say that the president looked at the Arab world and said, I'm neither impressed nor satisfied with your efforts.
All right. ABC's Tamala Edwards reporting tonight from Crawford, Texas. In a resolution adopted early this morning, the United Nations Security Council called on Israel to withdraw its troops from Palestinian areas. The 14-0 vote capped an emergency session of the council. The United States voted in favor of the resolution. Israel's most hardline neighbor, Syria, boycotted the vote. There were angry protests throughout the Arab world today. In Lebanon, protesters filled the streets in a show of support for Yasser Arafat. In Iraq, a similar display. Crowds gathered in Libya as well to condemn the Israeli attacks. And here in the U.S., Washington, D.C.'s Freedom Plaza was also filled with demonstrators. In other news overseas, today we learned more about a raid in Pakistan 2 days ago. 5 Taliban fighters and 25 Arabs suspected of having links with al-Qaeda were captured. The U.S. participated in the operation. ABC's John Yang is in Washington. Actually, not only did the U.S. participate, John, this is the first time the U.S. troops and intelligence officers actually led this type of raid.
That's right, Elizabeth. Until now, U.S. involvement has been limited to training and sharing intelligence. But U.S. and Pakistani officials tell ABC News that for the first time, FBI and CIA agents were actually in the lead. These sources tell us that they broke up what they call a major al-Qaeda cell that was planning operations and also captured what they call a treasure trove of material, including weapons, laptop computers, and satellite phones.
John, having such strong American involvement is obviously a big step for Pakistani President Musharraf, fraught with political risks for him.
That's right. He's got to be concerned about elements within his own country who don't want the U.S. so involved in Pakistan. And evidence of how sensitive this is, that the Pakistani government is denying that there was any U.S. involvement in these raids. And Elizabeth, here in Washington, the FBI and the CIA will not talk about it at all.
All right. ABC's John Yang, thank you for that live report this evening. In Bagram, Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai visited coalition forces at the airbase for the first time today. The interim prime minister thanked hundreds of soldiers from Australia, Poland, and other countries for helping Afghanistan to free itself. In the Philippines, the bodies of 5 American crewmen were found today. 10 servicemen were lost when a Special Forces helicopter went down February 22nd. A U.S.-led salvage team has now recovered all but 2 of the American servicemen missing since the crash. Still ahead on World News Tonight this Saturday, Britain mourns the Queen Mother, one of the most popular royals in history. The feud between adventurers and environmentalists in the West. And taking on one of the world's most difficult challenges, Everest.
This is World News Tonight, Saturday, brought to you by Viagra.
Thinking about trying Viagra? It's now available from your doctor in a free 6-pill sample pack.
6? That's my number.
So get in the driver's seat and ask about the free Viagra sample pack.
Get to your doctor for a checkup and find out if a free sample of Viagra is right for you.
For more information, race over to Viagra.com.
In the old days, athlete's foot meant using Lotrimin AF or Tenactin for 4 whole weeks.
Who does that? Today, Lamisil AT kills the fungus with just 1 week's use.
And keeps you athlete's foot free for 3 months.
Lamisil AT, the best way to cure athlete's foot.
For big savings on brake service. Lifetime brake pads and shoes. But you better hurry before these big savings are gone.
At Meineke, you won't pay a lot, but you'll get a lot.
You got gas? You gotta get these.
Phazyme Quick Dissolve Chewables.
So quick, like that. Bloating was gone and the pressure was gone.
A chewable that's quick to dissolve and quick to relieve gas. Phazyme.
Dissolves fast?
Gets rid of gas fast. I love it.
Phazyme Quick Dissolve Chewables.
Working hard or working out, nutrition is important. With Centrum or Centrum Silver, you benefit from what science discovers about how the right multivitamins help unlock energy and strengthen immunity. Centrum and Centrum Silver, always complete from A to Zinc.
In my 30s, I tried everything for my headaches. Then I discovered Bayer Extra Strength and the pain went away. In my 40s, I started getting bad back pain and Bayer came through again. Now I have arthritis in my knees and I still depend on Bayer Extra Strength. Bayer goes to work right at the site of pain and inflammation. Nothing works better. For relief I can always count on, there's still no better choice than Bayer. And regular strength aspirin is the only pain reliever that can help save your life.
Bayer. Take it for pain, take it for life.
It is the end of a long chapter in Britain. The beloved matriarch, the Queen Mother, is dead. Flags at Buckingham Palace are flying at half-staff, and mourners are gathering at Windsor Castle. The palace announced today that the Queen Mother died in her sleep. As ABC's Richard Gisbert reports, the woman known as the Queen Mum not only holds a unique place in the hearts of many British, but many Americans, too.
The Queen Mother was much more than the matriarch of the House of Windsor. She was beloved by her people, not only for what she was, but for what she did.
I have so many happy memories of days gone by.
Her life spanned the 20th century. Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon was born in 1900 to a life of privilege at a time when Britain was still more of an empire than a country. At age 22, she married the Duke of York, second in line to the throne. But when the Duke of York's older brother, King Edward VIII, abdicated in order to marry American divorcee Wallis Simpson, the Duke was thrust onto the throne. He became King George VI. His wife was crowned Queen Elizabeth. Their 10-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, became heir to the throne. 2 years after the coronation, they became the first British monarchs to travel to the United States. Already, the Queen showed an ease of manner that the King lacked, and the successful visit with President Roosevelt helped solidify British-American relations. 2 years later, they were allies in World War II.
When the moment came for America to get involved in the war, I think the foundations had been laid, at least in part, by that visit.
It was during the dark days of the Blitz that the Queen really shone. Refusing to leave London, the royal couple made morale-boosting visits to victims of the bombing. She insisted on wearing her best clothes amidst the rubble, it was said, because that's what people wore when they visited her. The Queen's propaganda value was not lost on Hitler, who reportedly called her the most dangerous woman in Europe. She remained active well into her 90s, and throughout the family's highs and its lows, maintained her mutual love affair with the British public. But she had grown frail, and when her daughter, Princess Margaret, died 2 months ago, Britons feared what effect that would have on the Queen Mother's health. She was never seen in public again.
Her death is almost like the end of an era of British history. Although she was never a political figure, she symbolized something about Britain that has now gone forever.
The Queen Mother was the kind of royal the British could love, and did. Richard Gisbert, ABC News, London.
And we'll be back.
Do you know the warning signs of osteoporosis? Unfortunately, there aren't any. It's a silent disease with no symptoms unless a bone breaks. So ask your doctor about a painless bone density test and if Fosamax is right for you. Fosamax is for postmenopausal women at risk for or with osteoporosis. It's proven to help reverse bone loss. Increases in bone mass were seen as early as 3 months. And Fosamax is the only osteoporosis treatment with a once-weekly tablet. You should not use Fosamax if you have certain disorders of the esophagus, are unable to stand or sit upright for 30 minutes, have severe kidney disease or low blood calcium. Use with caution if you have stomach or digestive problems. Stop taking Fosamax and tell your doctor if you develop new or worsening heartburn, difficult or painful swallowing, or chest pain, because these may be signs of serious upper digestive problems. 1 pill a week can help reverse bone loss and strengthen bone. Discover Fosamax once weekly, proven to help reverse bone loss.
Be adventurous. Be plugged in. Be involved. Be powerful. Be yourself. Because it's your choice, your voice, and your attitude. Today's AARP.
I quit. Feeling lethargic.
I quit. Feeling bloated again and again.
It's time to quit. Quit the cycle of irregularity with Metamucil Daily Fiber Therapy. With Metamucil, you don't just get regular, you stay regular. Day after day, week after week.
I didn't just quit. I quit for good.
And you can too.
Metamucil Daily Fiber Therapy. Get regular, stay regular.
Some women solve problems before they start. Little ones
and big ones. Introducing Today from One A Day. Today is the only complete multivitamin made with soy for your heart, plus 5 essential bone-building nutrients. Anticipate problems before they start. A better tomorrow starts with Today. New from One A Day.
We have a weapon of mass destruction coming into the United States.
Nicole Kidman, George Clooney, The Peacemaker. ABC tonight, 8/7 Central.
Scientists in France report they have successfully cloned rabbits from adult cells. The method they used has already produced clones of sheep, cattle, goats, mice, pigs, and cats. Medical researchers consider rabbit clones particularly useful because their physiology matches humans more closely than rats or mice. The New York Times is reporting a major change in Medicare coverage. According to the report, the Bush administration has authorized Medicare to reimburse the costs of treatment for Alzheimer's disease. The change was made last year but was not announced publicly. The new policy covers mental health services and other treatments for Alzheimer's, which affects 4 million Americans. This week, a federal plan to reopen thousands of acres of protected desert in California reignited a long-standing and bitter debate. The sand dunes are home to hundreds of species of wildlife and plants, some of them endangered. But the sandy expanse is also a magnet for weekend warriors on wheels. ABC's Bill Redeker has more.
This weekend, California's imperial sand dunes are being overrun by as many as 200,000 weekend warriors on off-road vehicles. In recent years, chaos has erupted, especially at night, when revelers have literally played with fire. It's been called the most illegal place in the world. Last year, 3,500 people were arrested here for everything from drug and alcohol abuse to stabbings and shootings. Despite that, the Bush administration wants to reopen nearly 50,000 acres of the dunes, closed more than a year ago following a lawsuit brought by environmentalists. Now, those same environmentalists are worried that 150 different animals and plants could be at risk, especially the endangered Pearson's milkvetch.
As this plant goes, so goes the ecological health of the dunes, so goes the visitor experience for everybody else that might want to come out here and enjoy it.
Dave Walker, who brought his family here from Phoenix, doesn't care much about that.
We drove 3 hours to get here to do this, and to take it away, you know, a milkweed, I think we spray for milkweeds in our front yard.
The Bureau of Land Management defends its decision favoring the off-roaders, saying they use the area more.
To them, this is a world-class off-highway vehicle area, and those people that seek the inner dune environment are very limited.
Environmentalists say this is one more example of the administration favoring development over preservation, whether it's logging, oil exploration, snowmobiling, or dune buggies.
This recent decision on off-road vehicles in this sensitive area of the California desert is simply part of an ongoing pattern of assaults on the environment by the Bush administration.
This weekend, it is the assault by off-road warriors that is testing both the dunes and those who police them. Bill Redeker, ABC News, Imperial Dunes, California.
When we come back, Everest, the challenge ahead for professional climbers and the amateurs they will try to lead to the top.
Realtors help you buy and sell real estate, but helping build communities is what they do best. Like Oralee Brown from California. 15 years ago, she made a promise and kept it.
I told them to just stay in school and I would pay their way to college.
Across the country, realtors are making their communities a better place to live. That includes Charlie Ockler, who volunteers as a basketball coach. Realtors adhere to a code of ethics. It's these values that help them live up to an even higher standard.
Can I give my dog a perm?
Are cats smarter than dolphins?
Look at those teeth. Should I get him braces?
What's with all the wiggling?
What's the best flea and tick treatment? Now that I can answer. Frontline Plus. It's the longest lasting, most complete flea protection you can get. And it kills the tick that may transmit Lyme disease. Plus 3 others. It's the best.
Ask your veterinarian about Frontline Plus. For dogs and cats, Frontline is the veterinarian's #1 choice.
Is it okay for Rudy here to eat bean dip?
Bottom of the 12th. Game time.
I should have used Preparation H.
Cool it fast with Preparation H Cooling Gel.
Cools on Contact for fast relief. Preparation H Cooling Gel. Cools on Contact.
Well, I'd stop for a quick bite. How you doing back here?
Let's see. No air conditioning, no stereo, no adjustable lumbar support. You tell me.
That's why I brought you this.
A Gateway notebook? With a DVD player?
Yep, but I put your favorite movie in.
True Grit?
You know it.
Take your time, cowboy.
Imagine combining the stain-fighting power of Efferdent and freshening power of Listerine. You'd get Efferdent Plus. It's extra fresh, and nothing gets your dentures cleaner. Efferdent Clean, Listerine Fresh. That's Efferdent Plus.
For big savings on brake service, stop into Meineke. You'll get 50% off, lifetime brake pads and shoes. But you better hurry before these big savings are gone.
At Meineke, you won't pay a lot, but you'll get a lot.
In the old days, athlete's foot meant using Lotrimin AF or Tenactin for 4 whole weeks.
Who does that? Today, Lamisil AT kills the fungus with just 1 week's use.
And keeps you athlete's foot free for 3 months.
Lamisil AT, the best way to cure athlete's foot.
The Shell Houston Open, final round tomorrow on ABC.
A brief review of our main story tonight. The standoff continues outside Yasser Arafat's West Bank compound, where the Palestinian leader remains trapped by Israeli troops. As that siege continued for a second day, a Palestinian suicide bomber wounded dozens of people in Tel Aviv. And throughout the Arab world, angry protesters took to the streets in favor of the Palestinians. Finally tonight, spring means climbing season again at one of the most dangerous places on Earth, Mount Everest. The weather window is a short one, just about 2 weeks in May. Even then, the weather can turn bad very quickly. Some teams are already perched in barren base camps 3 miles above sea level, hoping to make it to the top of the world. ABC's James Walker reports.
Imagine the opportunity to stand on the top of the world.
It is this fever. Good sense be damned. Everest, you know? Whoa, maybe I can do it, you know?
Mount Everest soars 6 miles above the earth in the Himalayas. It's the mightiest and wildest mountain range in the world.
This year, at least 26 teams have caught the Everest fever, and 5 are from the United States. And one of them plans to climb up and ski down. Okay, part of the way.
5 American women will also attempt the climb. Among them, a cancer survivor, a woman who's had 2 heart operations, and 3 moms.
I haven't really thought about, being nervous or being scared, but I'm sure once I am trying to walk across one of those really narrow ladders through the Khumbu icefall, that I will be nervous.
Al Hanna, who comes from Chicago, wants to become the oldest person to make it to the top. He's 72. But even though climbing Everest is increasingly popular, it hasn't become any less dangerous. More than 180 people have died on the mountain, 8 on one American expedition in 1996. Dr. Beck Weathers, a member of that team, remembers losing his eyesight as he fought to live.
And at this point, I said, this is crazy. One eye is completely blurred over, so I lost all my depth perception, and the other eye is not seeing that great.
Weathers was in what climbers call the death zone. Above 25,000 feet, it's where the brain begins to suffocate. Movement, thinking, breathing are dramatically impaired. The human body literally begins to die. Journalist John Krakauer, who was also on that fatal expedition, says he'll never go back.
I wish I'd never heard of Everest. I wish I hadn't gone. It was a huge mistake that will affect me for the rest of my life.
Sir Edmund Hillary knows Everest. In 1953, he became the first person to reach the summit. He believes that many of the amateur climbers who pay the $60,000 fee go for the wrong reason.
Many of these other people really couldn't care less much about the mountain. They just want to reach the top and be able to come home and maybe boast a little bit about their success.
This year, Hillary's son Peter and Jamling Norgay, the son of Hillary's guide, will attempt to retrace their father's route to the summit. Says Peter, it was like breaking the 4-minute mile and landing a man on the moon. And what about advice from his father? Look after yourself. Be careful. James Walker, ABC News.
Be careful indeed. That's our report tonight. You can email us at weekend@abcnews.com. We do like to hear from you. Tomorrow morning, this week, we'll have the very latest on the crisis in the Middle East. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. For all of us here at ABC News, have a great weekend, a happy Easter, and a good night.